Hello and welcome out there to everybody tuning in to listen to our podcast. My name is Don Putkela.
I'm Angela Putkela. This is our podcast.
Yeah, this is Welcome to Livingston, where every week we come in and usually we sit down and we talk to a local business and talk to them about Livingston County, about their business. We are both realtors as well.
Yeah, with the Putkela Group with KW Living.
Yes, and today it is just the two of us today.
Yeah.
And we have decided to take an episode and talk a little bit about pets.
Pets as it relates to real estate, in terms of not just selling your home, but if you're moving and you have a pet. Because sometimes people don't necessarily, they have so much to think of and so much to consider that the pet kind of falls a little later. And we want the process to go as smoothly as possible for everyone.
Right. And I mean, there's really two sides to that. And it's a different conversation if you are prepping your house to move and you have pets in the house, or what kinds of pets you have, or if you're starting to pack up your house to move and your pet is going to be in a new home and you're a buyer.
Right. So which one do you want to start with?
Why don't we, that's a good question. Why don't we start with you are prepping to sell your house?
Okay, sounds fair. In which case, when you are selling your home, the pets are a very big deal. There's a lot to consider, a lot goes into it. In terms of in our listing appointments, we do cover some points.
Yeah, we cover some points because, this is a very impactful situation for the pets as well. And sometimes as sellers, as homeowners, we love our pets, but we don't exactly think of how this works out from the buyers coming in, from the agent perspective, or from the pets themselves. So, one of the things that I wanted to start off talking about is if you are going to be prepping your home for sale and you're going to be having people go through the home, maybe it's not the best idea to have the pets in the house.
During the showings.
During the showings, yes.
Yes, you'd want to, in some cases people have a very friendly cat. And they said, you know what, it's just easiest to let that cat be around. While that's workable, it's always better just to remove it.
I have had the friendly cat follow me all over the house and been very concerned that I'm going to accidentally let the cat out of the house.
Right. And as a buyer's agent in that context, they're focusing more in on taking care of your pet and making sure that they're safe and they're not getting out than they are at selling your home, right? You want them to focus in on their buyers, on the house itself, pointing out all the great features. So when selling the home, anything that can not be a distraction, right? That's really what you want to focus in on.
Right, and you have allergy problems too.
That's true.
And it's a different discussion for cats and dogs.
Yes.
So for cats, it's maybe you see the cat, maybe you don't see the cat. Maybe it's hiding, but sometimes it's jumping up on things or it's following you all over the house. And then the people that you have with you is, do I ignore the cat? Do I pet the cat? What happens if I'm not exactly comfortable with cats? On the flip side of that, you have the dog who, as cute as the dog is, usually they're not very quiet when new people walk through the house.
Even if they're crated and there's a blanket over it, it's in the basement, it's in the garage, that's not really fair to that pet. And someone might be working right then. A lot of times you can lean in on, friends or family members. Hey, can the dog go over with you for a little while? Or maybe schedule, what some of our sellers do is they kind of know in advance and they schedule a day or two off and they take the dog and they go for the day and spend it, with someone or just out doing things. And then that just gets them completely out of the house, which is really the ideal during showings.
Yes. Yeah. And the vast majority we're talking about here are cats and dogs in the instance of bringing them out of the house. But later on in the podcast, we will talk about some of the other interesting animals that we've seen in the house.
For sure. Some of the weird pet stories that we have to share. So stay tuned for that.
So, but let me ask you a question. We walk into a house, we're sitting down with our clients, and they have dogs.
Yes.
What is that conversation like where we're helping them prep their house and prep their animal for showings then?
Absolutely. It's generally speaking, the dog's smell tends to be the one main overriding thing that sellers encounter, right?
Yes.
And so in terms of, obviously, if you're still living in the house at the time, as most people are, you can only do what you can do.
And they sometimes don't know that there's a smell.
That's
You're living
true.
in the house, they don't smell it.
Kind of nose blind, really.
Yes.
And so some scents are worse than others, you know.
Right.
And obviously, you know, a good groomer that can help out for sort of that immediacy. But a lot of times it's, you know, in the basement where the dog or cat had been kept, that maybe that animal is no longer around, but that smell still is.
Right.
So that's the priority.
Cleaning carpets sometimes is a big deal, a deep
Right.
cleaning of the house.
Duct cleaning.
Duct clean. Well,
If needed.
for cats, most
Right.
definitely duct cleaning, because that smell lingers a little bit more. But I would say one of the things I also see is damage, not damage, but you can see the impact of a dog in the yard.
Oh, for sure.
Meaning, you know, you'll have patches of the yard that don't grow as well because every animal has its favorite spot to do its business.
Yes.
And then you'll have other patches that grow amazingly well because, you know, they're doing number one in one area, they're doing number two in another area.
Well, and sellers are getting so busy getting their house ready to look beautiful, they haven't even thought about the doggy duty in the yard, right? We've walked through, you know, $500,000, $750,000 homes that have dog dookie in the yard. And so as someone is making a big purchase like this, and everything inside looks fabulous, and then you have to dodge dog poo. That's
Right.
not what you want.
No, you want to take care of that. And surprisingly, one of the neighbors where we live now has a company that comes out, and I didn't even know this existed. It shows up every week, and a guy gets out of the car, and his purpose is to come and pick up all the business in the yard so that the homeowner doesn't have to do it, which
There
is
you go.
interesting. But at any local pet shop, at Meijer, at Walmart, you can get a spray for the yard that will alleviate the chemical imbalance that's in the soil. That will fix the lawn so that you don't see those patches. And to that point also, if you have a dog run in the backyard, if you have an area where, you know, the dog is running back and forth all the time, that's an area that you're going to want to cure to get the grass to grow back before you list the property, because all those things are impactful. I mean, the animal isn't there anymore, but the evidence of the animal is there. And if the new people coming in don't have pets, that's not something that they want to have to bother to take care of.
Right. Because you want as many buyers as possible to picture themselves in your home, right? So you kind of want to neutralize smells, just everything neutral as much as possible. And we work with our sellers because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? By doing those things, by getting the house all cleaned up, even as we were selling our own house, we have the cutest little beagle in the world that we're going to mention, but the people that bought it were shocked. They said, "Oh my gosh, we had no idea there was even a dog in here." You know,
Right.
So that's really what you want to accomplish.
It's removing
as a
all those
seller.
evidences of the pet, both in the pictures and in the showings, right?
Right. And even those hard to find places that you didn't realize back when the dog was a puppy and they've chewed on the moldings, and they're much older now, so you didn't even remember that. We try to point out those things to try to get those things fixed.
Yeah, take care of those little details, right?
Yeah.
You know, and those make an impact. People should know that if you have an electric fence, the new owners are usually going to want you to leave that collar for that so that they can use the electric fence. Also, it's a good idea to know where those limits of the fence are, because when you get to the closing table, we just had a closing yesterday where they were discussing the electric fence and where the boundaries were, so that the new owner knew, hey, this is the limits of where the dog can go when they're training that dog.
Right. It didn't go all the way around the house. It was just in the front yard and in the backyard. You know,
Exactly.
Those are important questions. And even in terms of for buyers, if there's a certain type of dog that you have or a certain number, especially with condos, sometimes, you know, and we'll go through bylaws as needed, but just to make sure, because you do not want to purchase a home that you're not able to bring your pet into. You know,
Yes.
those things are very important to think through long before you hit the closing table.
Well, and we had a buyer last year who was looking at the dogs and such, and they had an older dog, and they were actually looking at what stairs were in the house and what steps were out front, and looking at, okay, well, I'm going to let the dog out to do its business at night. Does this area work for me? So there's a lot of little things, and having that conversation. And if you're a pet owner, you want to think about those things beforehand and not have to.
Absolutely. Well, and as we walk through with our buyers, we do try to determine their needs, point out some of those things as well.
Right. So also on that aspect then, since sellers are a lot of times buyers as well, and you have buyers, how do you start to prep a buyer for when they are moving and they have a pet? Because I know, me and you have discussed a little bit, and you actually made a couple phone calls to some of our clients to kind of get that idea of, how do you prep for this? What do you do?
Absolutely. I think I'd like to start with our experience.
Okay.
Since we ourselves moved about a year ago now. As I mentioned, we have a miniature beagle. She is 14 and a half right now.
Yes.
And we weren't sure, since 2 years ago, our vet said she has months to live with her
enlarged heart,
how she was going to take this. And it was a phenomenal experience. By the time she got over, it really perked her up. Just the stimulation. Was astounding.
But she was nervous.
Oh, the anxiety as we pack things. She always gets nervous anyway when there's suitcases out. So when there was boxes and more stuff kept disappearing and more, you could just see just the stress and anxiety that she was going through. And it was everything we could do to try to calm her down.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the things we used for that, when we were leaving the houses for showings, we brought the dog with us. When we found out what neighborhood we were moving to, we brought the dog over and started to take walks.
And she just
in that neighborhood
perked right up. She just was really interested in new scents and new things to see.
Right.
And that really helped acclimate her. And once we got keys, we were able to kind of bring her over and bring her with us when we would leave to go over with, each load or
right. And it's important to note those special things that are important to your dog. Make sure that you have those things with you. The blanket that they like to lay on all the time. Scents are so important. So having those things, understanding that, it's a new experience for them. And you may have to reteach them, making sure that they go outside, not have accidents. Where's the best place to go?
Yeah, they don't know what the routine is. At your current house, there's the routine. But at the new house, and that goes for cats too. They need to understand where the litter box is going to be. Yes. So just have some patience with them if there's any accidents in the process, because they're learning. And as their stuff is there, it becomes easier. And there really was, once we got into the new house, our little Casey was not anxious at all anymore. Not like she was at the old house.
Well, one of the things that I found interesting, and I think for other people when they're moving, not only does the layout change, but in our old house, we had carpet on the stairs. And in the new house now, we have hardwood stairs. That took her some time to adjust, because just like anybody else, I think your pets get comfortable with what they have, and they don't realize that change can be as impactful as it is.
But much like children, what we have found anyway is that pets are so versatile. And they're so able to adapt far more than, this elderly beagle, the slippery wood stairs, no problem. She just takes them slower. She really is rocking it. So doing better than I am, I think, on them.
Right.
But so from some of our clients, so we've helped Kim sell her house and purchase a new one here in process. It's getting built. But had a chance to connect with her, and she said, for their cute little pup, who's also an older dog as well, she said not leaving her alone for 2 weeks is what we did. We kept her schedule the same in regard to eating and walks. She followed us everywhere, so she was definitely sensing a change. Then we started leaving her alone for a couple of hours at a time, then rewarding her with a new toy or favorite snack, and she did great, and she's handled it like a champ. So those were some good strategies and good thoughts. I'm glad that that's worked out well for them, since they had a double move in their case.
Right.
And then
so they kind of eased into it.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. And then a couple years ago, we helped Livia and her husband purchase a home, and they moved in from out of state, and they have their 2 pups that they just love to pieces. And nowadays, she was telling me how she is a dog sitter for many of her neighbors. And so she had a lot of awesome thoughts. So, so her advice was that it depends on if the dogs have anxiety and if they're local or out of state. So it's the actual packing that is the most stressful thing for dogs, especially rescues, because they feel that they will be left behind. You know, the fear that these animals have, that makes sense because they don't understand what's going on. And you're so caught up in, you know, the whole process and everything that is going on that it helps to stop for a minute and to, you know, look at it from that pet's perspective. She brought up that if they smell all of their home stuff, they're going to be comfortable, and taking them along and introducing them to the new place helps. They have emotions and feelings because they only have us, and they're relying on us, and they want to be with us. So they deserve the best possible care and all the love. And when people get frustrated as they're packing and that dog is sitting in the corner watching them, you know, that's a cue that everyone needs to just stop and go for a walk, clear their minds, because the animal senses the frustration.
They can sense the anxiety.
Yes.
Right.
And they don't know why. And
right.
That's why those animals go through it.
Right, exactly. You know, and I find it interesting. So, you know, everybody having gone through COVID where we were all in our houses so much, that was very impactful to our pets because they went from, you know, my owners, my family leave in the morning and they come back at 5 o'clock. And our pets had a routine during the day while we were gone. We didn't know what the routine was, but they had a routine too, right? Yeah. And now they have their owners with them 24/7.
Yeah.
So how does that impact them? Like in our case, Casey loved it because Casey was getting older.
She hung on so long.
Exactly, because now she had that love and affection all the time, right? But when you're going to move, we have to understand that those little impacts, you know, and speaking from the point of view of the seller, think of the anxiety for those animals having all these new people come through the house.
Right. New sense, and they don't understand.
They don't understand. You know, let's say you have a dog where, you know, you've trained the dog for certain things. Maybe it's a watchdog, or maybe it's, you know, you've taught them how to interact with people. You know, if you have a dog that's used to jumping up on the couch and licking everybody, and now you're like, but don't lick these people, okay?
Don't jump on the couch now.
Don't jump on the couch. You need to stop that, right?
It was hard enough getting ready to move for children. Kids, it's like we're living in a magazine. Just don't touch anything.
Right.
You know, like for an animal, they're not going to understand at all.
No, they don't understand that change.
Yeah.
You know, so we need to be conscious of that and kind of take our time. And as real estate agents, a big part of that is educating our clients and coming through and talking about those issues and saying, okay, what pets do you have? What are your plans with them? You know,
how are we going to make sure that, you know, they're out of the way, but they don't feel out of the way? And
yeah, you don't want them to feel out of the way.
Right.
And sometimes that's lead time for showings. Yeah. That, hey, we have 2 big dogs, you know, we need a 2-hour window because we have to come home and we have to take them on a walk.
5-hour or
right.
whatever it takes, you know. A lot of times in the spring and the summer, people will take the dog for a walk. You know, it's like, hey, let's have our showings only be a half an hour because even though it's a big house, I just can't have the dogs out for longer than that.
Or cats that aren't used to getting out of the house.
Right.
You know, that's a little bit different too. So I kind of wanted to take a moment then to let's talk about some of the other animals that we can give a little bit of advice for.
Well, and we definitely want to point out a couple things. I've
skipped some things, haven't I?
I think you have. That's okay, though.
Right.
But like fish tanks, okay? We haven't even mentioned fish. We have some friends that were talking to us about it, and it was it a saltwater fish tank?
It was a saltwater tank, yeah.
Yeah, so what happened?
Okay, so they had a large saltwater tank in the corner of their living room that had been there for 7-10 years, a long time.
Yeah.
And it had active fish in it. So they're like, okay, we're going to get rid of the fish tank. We're going to be moving. We're going to move it. They moved it and didn't realize the saltwater damage that had happened to the wall behind it. They didn't realize the saltwater damage that had happened to the floor just from the odors and the moisture, the humidity that was coming out of that.
Because they didn't have the occasion to move it at all.
No, they never moved it.
Yeah.
This was where it was.
Yes.
You know, and it looked great, but it's not going to be there for the new owners. So, you know, when you're going in to get ready to move to list a house, hey, now's the time to move those things around, to look at those things, to say, is there an issue there that I'm going to take care of now? You know, I go back to the dog run, specifically because I've seen houses where they had a beautiful caged in long dog run in the backyard. That's a fixture that's staying with the home unless you decide you're bringing it with you. And if you're bringing it with you, maybe now's the time to take it out beforehand and put some grass back in.
Right.
So
yeah, anything that would be a fixture that would attach itself to the house and be left through the transaction, if that seller does not want that to leave, they want to take that with them, before it's listed is the perfect time to remove it.
Right, which is where we're talking
replace.
about built-in fish tanks.
Yes.
I've seen quite a few built-in fish tanks.
Right.
So in between walls, that sort of thing. So why don't we move on from that? Can we talk?
Oh, I did want to mention something on scented plugins, because we were talking about pet scents. So some people have the bright idea to just put the scented things all around.
The Glade plugins, yeah.
That really actually exacerbates the issue. Makes it even worse because you're clearly trying to mask the issue. And we have seen houses that the pet smell really wasn't that bad, but because that seller thought it was, it convinced the buyer that it was
right now you're
worse.
Trying to hide something instead of air out the house, get some steam cleaning on the carpets. If you have cats, maybe think about cleaning the ducts. At a minimum, change the filters on your furnace.
Right.
These things can make a huge impact. You know, speaking of odors, can we talk about birds for a minute?
Oh my goodness, birds are the worst. But we have, so this is a great little segue into our weird pet stories of things we've encountered. So I think this was with Janine and Jeremy, right?
Yeah, so not our listing. We went through a listing, and I was warned before we went to this, not listing, but showing. I was warned before I went to the showing that there was a parrot in the house that liked to swear. So the parrot they basically said, hey, don't go in this room. This is where the parrot is. Here's pictures of the room. Perfectly fine. But you could hear the parrot swearing through the wall.
Well, and I think they could hear us on the showing, too. Yes. And they were not very happy about it, clearly.
But our buyers thought it was the most hilarious thing.
It was very funny, though. It was. But then they were caught up more on the swearing parrot than on the house, you know. And as a seller, you're trying to sell your house. You know, your parrot is obviously going to go with you, but that was something that hugely distracted from this otherwise beautiful home.
Right. And that's to a point of not even talking about pets, but pets come into it as well. You don't want anything to be the story about your house other than your house.
Very true.
You know, and when we walked out of that house, we weren't talking about the house anymore. We were talking about the parrot that if you said hello through the door, the parrot swore at you.
Cussed like a sailor. Like, how?
And knew a lot of swear words.
Yeah, it was really kind of strange.
So, you know, that is, but in any of those things, you never want the story to be anything other than the house. And having a good agent that's going to walk through at the beginning and remove those distractions, regardless of what they are, becomes impactful. And to speak of distractions, I guess we can go through some weird pet stories now, right?
Yeah.
Or some interesting things that we've seen.
Yes, this is true. Yeah, you were the one that came across the pot-bellied pig roaming the yard, right?
Yes, I have had the pigs that were roaming the yard. In this case, it was a pet pig that you would treat a lot like a dog. It was a very large pot-bellied pig that was just in the backyard, just roaming around. You know, they told us was very friendly. We were not getting anywhere near the pot-bellied pig that was not in a cage.
Yep.
You know?
One of our more interesting transactions I'm going to want you to share more about that, is it was this old farmhouse that happened to have some elderly horses.
Yeah. So we have to understand that your pets, regardless of what type of pets they are, because people have animals that they own that are like family to them.
Yes.
And in this case, they were very elderly horses, and where the person was moving to, they could not have horses. And the idea is how do we let these elderly horses stay at the property until they, unfortunately or fortunately, pass away of old age, rather than having them move, which the seller did not think the horses could handle a move, and did not want to give them to a rescue. So, in all of those instances, it's just trying to figure out, having that conversation and understanding that these are to a pet owner, their pets are like family.
Right. But it was an uplifting story in the end, because the family that came in never had horses and wanted horses. And the seller came back and helped teach them how to take care of the elderly horses. And through the negotiation, what the issue was, hey, we'll take care of these horses, but we're very concerned about some of the
costs involved, and such.
and so forth.
So it's nice when you get buyers and sellers that both understand the issue, and they're able to sit down and say, how do we help each other? And in this case, you had a seller whose concern was, I want the horses to be happy, and I want the horses to have a good home. And then you had buyers who said, you know what, we understand this. We're willing to work with you to have the horses have a good home, and you can help us learn how to take care of these horses. So, you have that relationship involved. And, we've seen that in other aspects where you have someone that's selling a house that they have chickens.
Yes.
And they're moving to a house that can't have chickens. And the people moving in say, oh my God, I've always wanted to have chickens. Can I keep your chickens?
Yeah, we saw that.
In that case, we will keep all the chickens except for there's one mean rooster, and the rooster can't stay because the rooster tends to attack the other chickens and the people coming to the house. So the other real estate agent actually said, you know what, I have chickens, but I don't have a rooster. I'd love to have a rooster. So everybody was happy in that.
It was kind of fun. At one point, there was a barn cat bounty because feral cats, by the way, if you have any feral cats in your area, know that very much could be an issue. There was a barn cat that just sort of lived outside, and the buyer did not want that. And when it came at closing, I think it was the final walkthrough, that the cat was still there and it was supposed to have been removed. And so...
Yeah, they've been trying to catch the cat for a couple weeks, and we're having trouble catching the cat.
Right. But then there was a kind of a large, hefty dollar amount that was put up to say, hey, by the time we move in, if that cat is still there, then,
Yeah, no, you need to, get that cat, get it to a rescue, because if you have feral cats, they're not coming in the house, but this is their territory. And if you're okay as a homeowner with that, know that the new people coming in might not be okay with that. And you've set up a situation where this cat thinks this is its home.
Right.
So you need to solve that situation.
Don't be surprised if the buyer tries to put some dollars behind it and say, look, you're going to owe me X amount if that cat's still there,
Yes.
Because, there's a lot of negotiation that goes into these transactions. I think a lot of people think it's a lot more simple than it is. People buy things on Facebook Marketplace, and a house isn't like that.
No, every house is very unique. Every situation is very unique. And when you look at the animals, that adds to the uniqueness. So, whether it's the dog that is scaring the people that are coming to a showing, or the dog that is in a cage that is so loud, you feel bad for the dog, even though it's not that the dog is upset that the dog's in the cage. The dog wants to desperately lick you.
Yes.
But it can't get out.
No, this one isn't a real estate story, but it's my favorite animal story of all time. Can I tell that? Can I share that? I can make it snappy.
You can make it snappy.
When Bruce is loose.
Oh, you're talking about Bruce. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a part of this story, but yes, you can.
We were at
you can talk about Bruce.
When our oldest was at a birthday party for one of his friends when he was really little.
They had a boa constrictor.
Boa constrictor, yes.
Yes.
And Bruce got loose in the middle of the birthday
there was
party.
a boa constrictor that somehow the cage got opened up, so you had a
house full of people.
4 or 5 foot long boa constrictor, and the wife, she walked up to me and she pulled my ear over and she whispered in my ear. She goes, "Don't freak out and don't tell anybody, but we can't find Bruce." and these are 4 and 5 and 6 year olds. I cannot remember if our son he was just out of preschool, so he's probably in kindergarten.
I don't know, but as you would picture any small children, birthday party with a boa constrictor. We're trying to help out. There's I think elderly, people around too. You're trying not to cause alarm. But
in this case, it did take him a day or two to find Bruce. Afterwards, Bruce was in one of the heating ducts and had just gotten in the heating duct and curled himself up and such. But you learn to keep the top on the cage.
Yes. And so it would be the same thing for showings. If you have, any reptiles, anything's, in a tank of some sort, make sure that they are secured.
And people coming through showings, they're not going to touch it and such. They're going to follow protocol, but they are going to look at your fish tank. They are going to, if you have an iguana in a cage, and they have kids are going to be staring at the cage going, "Where's the iguana?" Because those things, people don't get to see them that often, and they're so interesting. So if you have exotic animals, again, just there's a conversation that needs to be had there to prep people.
Because each sale, each person, it's a whole different experience. And we really custom tailor the experience for them so that way they're prepared and they know, and we can head off any issues before anything happens.
Right, and Googling things is a really good idea. I am guessing that if you have a large snake and it's winter and it's cold and you have a heat lamp on your snake to keep everything good, and now you're going to move across town, there is a process involved there to get your animal moved safely and keeping it warm and such.
Absolutely. Yes, so much to consider.
Yes.
For sure. So, but we are here for even non-pet owners, but we hope that you guys enjoyed the Fur Baby episode because they are such an important part of people's lives.
And we would love to hear your fur baby stories. We would, like we said, we have a very cute beagle that's 14 and a half years old who was extremely active when she was younger. She was an escape artist. Not so much anymore, but
everybody has something.
Everyone has something.
It's part of the dialogue of life, and in living your best life, whatever house or place that is.
Yeah, and if you have an animal and you're thinking of moving, give us a call early. We would love to come sit down, walk through your house, walk through your yard, and say, "Hey, here are the things that you might want to take care of. Here's the things that you might want to look at." In some cases, it's absolutely nothing, but in other cases, it's the animal used to chew through all the moldings, so we put this in the way, and now not only am I curing moldings, but I'm also curing other stuff. So thank you guys so much for listening today.
Yep, and shout outs to our clients, or our clients that helped out with their insight as well. We hope you guys like and subscribe.
Yeah, check us out on all those different platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple, Google us, and we'll be back next week with a new episode. So we would love to have you guys check us out and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn.
Great. Thank you so much, and welcome to Livingston.